Hi, I'm John Constantinide, and I'm a co-life group leader of The Line, the Mezzanine's Men's Bible Study. And I want to do a recap of what the guys did last night for the Men's Bible Study. We looked through John chapter 9 and want to look at how Jesus is just or was just in a world where people are judging or were judging back in Jesus' time. And I want to look at how Jesus healed a blind man, and then how this blind man was judged, and then eventually realized after he was judged by those around him, including the Pharisees, that he was healed by the Christ because he didn't realize it when he was being healed. And then how Jesus takes that example of him being blind and seeing and turns it around to the Pharisees. So as a brief synopsis of what happened, Jesus came by and saw a blind man. His disciples asked him, Jesus, was this man blind because of his parents sinning or he sinned in his life? And Jesus said, no, this man is not blind because he sinned or his parents sinned, but that God's work may be shown in his life, may be present in his life. And so right there, we can ask ourselves in parallel situations, when bad things happen to me, and bad things, by the way, don't come necessarily from God. Evil is not created by God. But when situations happen in our lives, we have to ask ourselves, not why is this happening to me? Why is God doing this? Or especially not why is God hurting me? But more so, how is this an opportunity for God to work in my life? And that's really taking issues from your perspective or our own perspective, our own eyes, and moving that towards God's perspective. And right there, Jesus uses his power to heal the blind man. Well, once the blind man could see, the Pharisees saw him and questioned him and asked, how did you see? And how were you healed? And the former blind man said that he was healed on the Sabbath, or that day, which happened to be a Sabbath. And the Pharisees were so focused on the former blind man being healed on a Sabbath. They were so focused on the Sabbath that they really didn't look at the fact that he was healed and the fact that it was a miracle. They wondered why a miracle was done on the Sabbath. And really, that points to the question that we can look at and we can learn from: how do we see things, when there are troubled times or when good things happen, but not the way we want them to be? Why does God want to do that? And again, it's going back to looking at things not from our own eyes, but from God's eyes. Then Jesus sees the blind man being thrown out after the blind man explains again and again, I was healed on the Sabbath, and then eventually says, why does it matter that I was healed on the Sabbath? This guy healed me. And the Pharisees didn't like that, and they further said, you're a sinner because you sinned, and as a result of your sin, you are blind. Well, Jesus says in John chapter 9, verse 39, for judgment I have come into the world, so that the blind will see, and those who see will become blind. This is after Jesus identifies himself to the blind man as being the Christ. And the blind man, or the man who was blind, worships Jesus. So the Pharisees were perplexed by this. They said, what? We're blind too? And Jesus was talking to them. He basically said, you know what? This man was blind. This man said, I need to find a way. I don't know what to do. And I'm going to leave it in God's hands. And you know what? God took this man and made him see. And we have to ask ourselves, do we try to take situations in our own hands? I took plenty of situations in my own hands, in my college years especially. And you know what? I realized after the fact many times that God could have done a lot better job. Here, the Pharisees don't realize that. They persist in saying, we can see, we know God, we know who He is. We're followers of Moses. We have a law. And Jesus is saying, you know what? It's not about you. It's not about your glorification. So Jesus sends off saying, if you were blind, you would not be guilty of sin. But now that you claim you can see, your guilt remains. When we claim to see, our guilt remains. Now Christ's blood washes away all of our sins. But for those who don't believe, their guilt remains. They haven't repented. And when we approach situations, we should try and strive to aim to see things the way God does. Be blind so that God can let us see. So come by Men's Bible Study, Mondays, 7 p.m. See you later.